Hi everyone. I'm having a kind of a relatively lazy Sunday, and I thought I'd just kind of stop in and tell you about a project that I'm just putting together for myself. Um, you may have, if you were watching me during the week, I was talking a little bit about, hi everyone, how you doing? I was talking a little bit about the fact that I never knit for myself, right? Pretty much never. And it means that when I sit down in the evening and I'm knitting, it's still work. And I was trying to figure out a way of using yarn. Primarily, it's usually from if I've been going to what you call it, to shows and things like that. I tend to pick up yarn and I don't always use it. And usually it's like one, maybe a couple of skeins that I really like, but I don't necessarily have full sweaters worth of stuff. And for me, I think one of the reasons I like to knit sweaters is because it's such a big project. I can sit down and put a little bit of thought into the swatching and the planning, and then I've got several weeks worth of knitting where I don't have to think about it too much. Particularly for more straightforward patterns that have a lot of stockinette and don't have a lot of shaping and things like that. And it's that kind of appeals to me right now. I'm playing, if we're playing games as a family in the evening, or if I'm watching TV, I don't really want to have to think too much about the knitting. So it should be a fairly basic stitch pattern, or something where I can do the shaping or the bits in between when I've got a bit more concentration. So I thought I might start with just a general series right now. And maybe on Sundays might be a nice time to do it, or even during the week as I'm moving through it, where I'm just going to take a handful of skeins that I love and do a swatch, measure it out, and go from there and kind of just design something very, very basic, and maybe even take you through the thought process of when I'm trying to do something like this, my mental planning, because I end up, probably because I'm usually designing, I put a lot of other steps in place that you wouldn't necessarily need to do for if you're just doing it for yourself. So things like, if I don't want to think too much about the sizing, or think that the yarn I'm using might grow a small bit, in that particular case I'm probably most likely to do something top down. When it's something like, and it's in terms of the garment that I'm making, it's not even just the knitting that I want to be relaxing. Often if I'm knitting something with that kind of thinking behind it, I probably want something extremely relaxing to wear as well. So for me, I kind of drop shoulder, oversized, possibly a little boxy, would work pretty well, because I've started wearing a lot of tunics and leggings lately, and cropped but wider sweaters that sit over them work really well. Benefit of this is that I can bring you all along on this journey if I'm doing a drop shoulder one, because all we need to do is figure out what size you want and work with the gauge you have. So it means that if I do a couple of little videos here and maybe some blog posts on the actual, the basic measurements that I'm using, then it might be enough for you to be able to go and root through what you've got in your wardrobe in your yarn wardrobe at home, stuff that you love but you don't perhaps have enough of to make a garment, but that if you have a few ones in similar weight yarns, they can kind of cobble together. So what I'm envisioning is somewhere between a fade sweater, but like a drop shoulder one, so like very square, top down, but kind of taking a couple of yarns around the same weight that they don't look like they match, but they like together, and maybe throwing in a little bit of texture to go with it. So I'll show you the yarns. Like if you watched this a few weeks ago, you might have seen what I was doing with kind of just the stuff that I had, and I've been swatching with it. So I'll show you what I'm doing and what I think works and doesn't work. So these originally I did buy to fade together. Now I've skeined them all up, and I've got going to put these in order. We've got, this is the Yellow Brick Road. These are all La Bien Amie, and it's a merino singles. I'm going to just pull the tags out because I can't remember the names of it. It is merino singles, and this one is, I can't pronounce it, La Littoral, Littoral, is this one here. This one is Yellow Brick Road. That was nice and easy to do. And this one is the Magellan, oh God, I can't pronounce it. Magellanic cloud. Anyway, so those are the three different colors. The reason I picked them out is, well, this one is one of my favorite colors. It's kind of close to what I'm wearing right now. And then this is the next one that went along with it. And you can kind of see here that it had blue, but there's tiny specks of kind of lighter colors going through it. It's really useful if you're doing something that fades from one to another, if there's even a tiny hint of the other one coming through. Because when you're fading them from one to another, you're going to do a round of one color, round of the other. And if there's even little bits of speckles running through them, it means that they're going to look like they'll blend together. Little less so in these two, although you can probably see there's still a few kind of lighter goldy specks and a few kind of slightly lighter colors through, so they'll work together. So this is the basic concept. So a fade with usually from a lighter to the top to a darker at the bottom. Just visually it's kind of nice to go from light to dark. But if you prefer having this color at the top, go for it. It's just instinctively I find that I just tend to start with the light at the top, and I'm going to do a top down because that way I don't have to worry about yardage, because I want it wide so that it'll go over that tunic, but relatively cropped. So if I do this top down, and I can kind of decide where I want each to stop and then just leave a little of each color to be able to use it on the sleeves. Or you could, if you want, perhaps you'll go like this and then you've got a lot of this left and you end up with the sleeves in one color. There's kind of no rules with this. It's really kind of what you think looks nice and planning just enough forward to know that I do want sleeves on it, so I'm going to leave enough that I can add sleeves. So those were the three main colors. But if you saw the last one, you would know that I also had two other colors. These are from Ullen, and I picked these up and they kind of go together again, because this grey has got there's little bits of greys and pinks and things flecking through this color. And these Ullen ones are Surrey Silk Cloud, and it's a fingering weight, and it's a mix of Surrey alpaca and mulberry silk. So what I was kind of envisioning is you'd have those other three fading through, and then take this to double up in stripes running through it, like alternating. Perhaps, I mean, what my envision was this one being stranded with this one in stripes going down. You could have them really close, or you could have very few of them, but just add a little bit of texture and a bit of interest and a few more colors, but in a somewhat controlled manner. This one I actually think looks really nice held with this one. And then you could do either of them with this, but I mean, this is going to probably be the most subtle. If you hold the two of those together, it will be quite a subtle combination. So I will show you the swatch that I have done. I haven't gone and blocked this yet, so that's going to be the next thing I will do. And particularly if you're doing things where you're basically messing around with yarn and experimenting with it, it's really important to block and to swatch. Because one thing with the swatching is you can test out the colors. So I've got all those different colors, and in my head I'm like, I think, oh, they'll be nice faded together. But until I put them together in a swatch, there's no way for me to know if that's going to work. So what happened with the swatch here, this is the swatch pulled together. I started off with that Yellow Brick Road, and then I started doing a kind of faded, I did one row of each color on the right side and then one row of each color on the wrong side, because we're doing it flat, to be able to do just one row stripes to fade from one to another. And then I went to the middle color here, and then I faded down to this. And you can see me experimenting with a few of the double-stranded one here, where I introduce my Surrey Cloud. And here I tried it in garter stitch, and I tried it in garter stitch here. And I think I'll opt against that, and the main reason for it is, I don't know if you probably can't quite see it here, the texture of the garter is so thick because the two yarns stranded together are really thick texture, and then when you add garter stitch it tends to poof outwards, and I feel that it'll just stand out way too much. So down on the bottom here I tried it again, but this time just doing it in stockinette stitch. And it's kind of, it does have a thick stranded effect, but it doesn't feel quite as bulky. So I think that I'm going to abandon the garter because it's just, I just don't like the feel of it. It just feels like it's too dominant, I think is probably what I would call it. I mean, I could also even go with like just leave the Surrey alpaca, but I don't know why. I think because I really like the yarn, I like the texture, I like the way it feels. So I think I want to wear it. And so I'm trying to figure out where of incorporating it into it because I have only 2 skeins. And when you're holding it with the merino, it feels really nice. It's got a lovely bulk on the needles and it's comfortable to knit. But I prefer the way it works in stockinette stitch. So I think that's what I'm going to go with. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go block this and I will measure my gauge, and during the week I'll stick up a little blog post on carolfeller.com, and on the blog post I'll just do a very quick sketch as to the shape I'm planning on knitting, kind of including roughly how wide will I do the neck, and how deep will the armholes be, and how wide am I going to do the body. Just a plan, a kind of an accountability plan for myself so that I can, or even to remember what I'm trying to do, because it's unlikely this will be a formal pattern because there's going to a lot of different things going on, but you might find it interesting to follow along. And if there's any people out there, do you have like a handful of skeins like that fall into the same category where you love the colors but you're not really sure what you combine them with, and you don't really have enough of any one to use for a full garment, but you might have enough in the same weight that you can somewhat combine them all together? If you think that that's the case, send me on a DM, or come take a look during the week. It'll probably, I'd say, be Tuesday by the time this is blocked and dry, and I'll just put a little blog post up, and you can just kind of post up and say that you're going to jump in and join me, and maybe we can just do a little garment experiment and use up some yarns we love. And particularly, the whole thinking behind it is yarn that you love and you'd really love to knit, and something that is really pleasant to work through, that doesn't require too much thinking, and is going to just, a comfortable sweater to wear. This is not going to be a fitted garment. I'm thinking really simple drop shoulder with a few interesting little techniques thrown in, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Something you'll wear. You decide on, poncho's perfect. I often think of ponchos as shawls done in the round, and the reason I'm probably more likely to do drop shoulder than raglan is that raglan can end up being quite, even though the technique of knitting it is quite easy, to get it to fit all the sizes is quite tricky. Whereas with drop shoulder, I feel that you can, once you've got the gauge, pretty much exactly what size you need for all the way across. So I think that might be a good one. So we could do just kind of like a little design along. Come join me during the week. I'll get that blog post up. And it would be a lot of fun to have other people come along with me on my yarny experiment, because I don't get to play with yarn very often outside of having a very structured need to design a pattern. So this is going to be a lot of fun for me, and this is going to be something that I will wear, because I've got 2 tunics now, and I want to get another one where they're kind of a marled navy blue color, and I think that all of those would go really nicely with it. And maybe I'll look out for some other colors, even the nice light mustardy colors and things like that, that I could wear underneath it. You should totally come to a garment with me. I'll probably throw up links to some basic techniques where I usually use short rows for shoulders, because that way you don't have to do any steps, but it still gives you a little bit of shape in the top. And then and be keeping it really simple. This is the aim of this is it should be a lot of fun, and it should be something that it's going to be more casual, and you just you know, if we're going to be at home for a couple more months on and off over the next year or two, I think having something that's really comfortable to wear at home or over your PJs or with a pair of leggings would be really nice, don't you think? So come and join me. I think it's, judging by the reaction to this, I think a lot of you would probably get a bit of a kick out of this as well. So this should be fun.